Okay, let's see. We are live. Let's do it. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and go live on Instagram. We're gonna get started. Hello, hello, hello. Great people of the world. Hey guys, Taylor Nixon here. Happy Sunday, happy Sunday. We're back at it. Back at it with another episode. Takeaways with Tay. Got a good book for today. We got a really good book for today. It's called Better Capitalism. And I can't wait to dive into it. But first, let's let the temperature warm up a little bit. See where you guys are at. And let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb, because that would be tragic if somebody Do Not Disturb. Okay. There we go. All right, guys. So, happy Sunday to everybody. I hope you guys are enjoying this beautiful weather in Atlanta. If you are, at least in Georgia, we had some great weather. It's really hot, actually, right now. But yeah, so today, for Takeaways with Tay, we have a really interesting read. This read right here is called Better Capitalism. And Better Capitalism. It's by Paul E. Knowlton and Aaron Hedges. And before we get into like the takeaways, I actually want to talk about what brought me to this book. Because it's an interesting story. So let's start off. Let's go back, rewind some time. I used to work with Amazon, believe it or not. So I'm going to share some things that you may have not known about me. You may or may not know about me. Around, it's like summertime, but I ended up in a position where I needed, money, and I do have a degree. So for people who don't know, I have a degree. But it was just one of them situations where it was like a stepping stone, like an odd job that I knew wasn't like my life sentence. Like I knew like Amazon wasn't where I was going to end up making like most of my money. But it just happened to be, something that I needed at the time to supplement, income and things like that. So with that being said, I'm doing the day-to-day duties of what it is for, being an Amazon worker. So for those of you who don't know, working at Amazon, I used to go, so I had a partner. We were like co-workers, if you will, and they drove the truck, and then I'd be like in the passenger seat and like help, deliver packages. So like our typical job is just, going from house to house, delivering packages, and it's very simple. One particular day, there was an unordinary task, right? So we had to deliver a package, but we got to a house, and instead of just like delivering the package and like going on, we had to get out, knock on the door, make sure the person was there, because this was like a special delivery, and they call it like deliver to room of choice or something like that. Amazon has this service where you can deliver to a room of choice. So we got out. I knocked on the door. My coworker went and got the package. I think it was like a TV or something, and checked to see if the person was home. They were. It was a white male. He was older. Very nice, very kind. Greeted us. We took the TV. A coworker put it inside his like living room area. And I'm a very observant person, like very observant, very curious. So like I walk into his house, and I'm looking around, and I noticed that he has like a lot of books, a lot of literature, and I'm an avid reader. So first thing that pops into my head is like, okay, what is he interested in reading? So I asked him. I said, "What's your favorite read right now? Like, what are you currently reading?" And he goes, "Boom, Better Capitalism." He's like, "A book I wrote called Better Capitalism." I said, "Like you wrote it?" He was like, "Yeah." And so I asked to see the book, and he went to go get it, And like while he's going to go get it, I'm looking around. I'm just like kind of like intrigued, you know. And he comes back. He gives me and my coworker $10, and then he also shows me this book. So I said, I said, can I get the book in exchange for the 10? Like, can you just keep the 10, and I take the book. He was like, absolutely. And the crazy thing is, because he was like, when he gave us the 10, he tipped the money for us, and he was like, you know, go get you some lunch. But in my head, and see, this is the power of just like not looking at your situation as like, I'm just here to make money and that's it. Like having like all these different ways to see a situation. So in my head, I'm like, you know, money is one thing, but at the same time, like my experiences with like while I was going out and being a part of like working at Amazon, I'm like, you know, interested in the people that I'm connecting with, like who I'm looking at all these different houses and these different neighborhoods that we're going into, and like there's people who had like golf courses as their backyards, and I had never seen that before. So it was like interesting, and you know, it let me know like what's possible. But anyway, so he gave me the book in exchange for the $10, and he autographed it. So he signed it, and he said, to Taylor, my new friend, blessings and happy reading, Paul Knowlton. This is in Decatur, Georgia. So that's the book. This is the story of how I got this book. And honestly, you know, he told me to read it. He said, you know, email him, let him know like what I thought, like what my comments, concerns, if I had any questions about it. And I was like, absolutely. So it's like 16 chapters. I read it, and I'm here to share 3 key takeaways from reading it, because I think it was very insightful. And like I don't normally read financial books, if you will. Like I don't consider myself financial guru or whatever, but this was very insightful and I learned a lot. So I want to share that. So first takeaway here is that, number 1, America has a problem. I think you guys know that. Like if you live in America, if you're aware of like what's going on, especially with our economy, you know that America has a problem. Specifically, America has a lot of problems, but specifically, America has a problem with our current state of economics and it being sustainable for us as a society over time. So I want to start with what the book kind of breaks down is like you have a shareholder and you have a stakeholder. And this is like with all businesses, right? So like the foundations of our economy is that it's a free market. So anybody, you, me, our grandparents, our parents, anybody can become a billionaire with just a business and execution, right? Of course, it takes a whole lot more than that. But with that being said, there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of corruption because of that. And one of the biggest things is that, like, so as a business, as a corporation, you have shareholders and you have stakeholders. Shareholders are the people that they own pieces of the company. They actively invest in the company. The company takes that profit, that money, and then they in turn make a profit or generate revenue based on that investment. Then you have stakeholders who are like your everyday people that are affected by that particular corporation. So like everyday people, all the players of the story, seen and unseen, when it comes to corporations and things like that. So an example of a stakeholder would be like your average employee, or like your somebody who like might be a janitor who cleans the building, somebody who lives like within the area that might be affected by the air, that if that corporation is like a factory or something and they're like polluting the air, stakeholder would be affected by that because they live within the proximity of that corporation. And so basically the book starts off with a distinction between the two, because, and this is important because you have to know what role you play in the web of dynamics of like, or the web of economics, if you will. Which leads me to my next point, is that for everyone listening, like whether or not you're aware or not, you are in fact a part of the economy. Whether you're an active participant or a passive participant, by default, you live in America, you pay taxes, like you are being affected by the decisions that these corporations are making. And you may or may not be aware of that. So that's why this is very important to understand. Like books like these are very important to read. It's facts, nonfiction. It's all based on facts. But it helps you gain that awareness of like the role that you're playing, so that you can either be a more active participant and educated participant, or not. It's up to you. But so key takeaway number one is that America has a problem, specifically like an economic question of like, is our economy stable enough not stable enough, but can it sustain itself over time at the rate of like the way that we're going right now? Let me go page 18. So also when it comes to like understanding that role that we play in the economy, there's three major factors that shape our real life economic decisions. So the book says that there's ignorance, which is we're just unaware of economic matters. The second thing is uncertainty. So we do have some awareness of economic facts, but we're uncertain about what those facts mean and then how to interpret and make sense of those facts. And the third major factor that shapes our real life economic decisions are confusion, which means that we have some awareness of economic facts and some awareness of their meaning, but we're confused on how to put that understanding into practice. And so, with that being said, that leads me to my next point, which is Michael Sandel. He's a Harvard professor. And he proposes this idea of how, what is it called? Basically how like the negative effects of putting a dollar bill on every transaction, right? Like everything that we do when it comes to, or like not everything, but you can't go outside without like spending money, literally, especially if you live in a major city. Everything is, there's a dollar amount attached to everything. It costs to get gas, it costs to go, basic things like that. But now it's like starting to cost to do things that it didn't used to cost to do. So for example, like the book says that our relationships and the way that we interact with each other is becoming price permitted, meaning if you can afford it, we can make it happen. If you can afford certain things, we can make it happen. So it gives the example of like hunters being able to buy the right to hunt and kill endangered species, endangered black rhino species in South Africa, or corporations being able to buy the right to pollute carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And they even have like the metrics, $10.50 per metric ton. So you're like you're able to buy the right to basically get away with something that is harmful for other people, for yourself and other people, because you have that money. And that's where we are right now. Like that's where we are in our economy and in economics, is that if you have the money, you can get away with practically anything. And that's dangerous. Like it's very, very dangerous. So takeaway number 2 is that, so let me rewind. Takeaway number 1 is that America has a problem, right? And that problem specifically is that our economy, we cannot sustain it over time. It's gonna harm us. Like it's harming us if not. I mean, I think like just from a standpoint of like mental exhaustion, like people are tired of getting up and going to work every day to work for the bare minimums, and then they're not, they're spending all their energy there. They don't have enough time for family and relationships, whatever the case may be. Like people are tired. But takeaway number 2 is that there is a solution. So although America has a problem, there's a solution, and the book proposes that solution is what we call partnership economics. Partnership economics, the basis of it, it's like the golden rule, if you will, of how we should govern ourselves when it comes to our economy. And it's that God provides, and we partner. You said it's me, I'm tired of getting I feel you. Yeah, everybody's like, honestly, like, a lot of people don't have the luxury to get up and do what they love to do. You know, like, it's a catch-22. But so yeah, so the going back to like the foundations of partnership economics, the book insinuates that God provides and we partner. And also that you should love your economic neighbor as you love yourself. So it's going back to the golden rule: love your neighbor as you love yourself. Love your economic neighbor as you love yourself. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that look like? I'm glad you asked. It basically means, the book basically says, it's like having a symbiotic relationship with each other, right? So like the foundations of our partnerships, and partnerships can look like anything. It can look like corporate, business. It can look like community, family. It can look like relationships. You know, whatever partnership means for you, the basis, the foundation of that is that you should love your economic neighbor as you love yourself. In this case, we're going to apply it to economics. And what that looks like is having a symbiotic relationship. So this goes back to science. This goes back to 5th grade science and the meaning of symbiotic relationships. Symbiotic relationships are where two species, if you will, are both benefiting. So they're interacting with one another in a way where they both benefit. So a good example of that is like a bee and a flower. Right? A bee and a flower. The bee benefits because the bee gets to go to the flower, get the pollen, take the pollen, go to other flowers, get the pollen, take it back to the beehive, and then in turn can create honey. The flower benefits because the flower is then it gets pollinated, right? From the bee taking pollen from plant to plant, flower to flower, it then gets pollinated and now it can reproduce. But as you can see, the bee can't fully perform its function without the flower performing its function. So it's a relationship that is dependent upon each other for success. And that is the type of relationships that we want when it comes to just like life in general. Specifically here, since we're talking about economics. And in that, right, there's power in that, right? Because a flower cannot reproduce by itself. It needs pollen. It needs this interaction. It needs this dynamic interaction with the bee and other pollinators. They're very important for our pyramid, food pyramid, nature pyramid, something like that. But so yeah, that's one thing. But also, if we're applying this symbiotic relationship to business, let's say we have like LA Fitness and we have Powerade, right? 2 different companies, 2 different goals. LA Fitness goal is to like encourage health and wellness, right? Powerade might be to make you feel energized so that you can engage in health and wellness. So they both have like similar goals, but their power lies in being able to connect and partner in a way where Powerade can leverage LA Fitness's market of people who want to engage in like a healthy lifestyle, and LA Fitness can engage in people who want to feel energetic. You know, it's like it's a great relationship for business, and that's what the book is basically saying, that we should aim to cultivate in our lives, is partnerships with one another. Now, the opposite of that, and what's currently taking place, is what we call parasitism. Parasitism. That, once again, going back to fifth grade science, is where you have two species. One benefits from the other. We can call the other like the host. So one species is benefiting from the other, but the other one is actually becoming harmed from the other. So for example, if we have like if I'm walking in a forest and a tick attaches to me, God forbid that, but a tick comes to me, and let's say I don't know that it's on me, right? It's behind my ear. I have no idea. It's sucking my blood. And not only is it sucking my blood, but it's benefiting, right? It's growing. It's getting all the nutrients from my blood. But guess what I'm about to get? I'm about to get Lyme. I'm at what do you call it? I might get Lyme disease, right? Or like an infection could take place because of this interaction with this tick in me. I don't even know it. I'm not even aware the tick is there. So that's what like the current state of our corporate America is right now, is that you can kind of look at shareholders as like the tick. Well, okay, let me not say shareholders are the tick. Let me be a little bit more responsible with that. Basically, where the relationship there's not a balance of benefit. One side is benefiting more than the other side, and that's not what we want. The book gives a really good example of what that looks like in our current economics, or what that looked like. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with payday loans, but I remember vividly seeing payday loans when I used to live, when I was young, Morse Road. My mom, we would drive, and like I just know, like I'm always very observant, and I would look outside the window, and like payday loans are prominent in Black communities more so than other communities. And for anybody who doesn't know what a payday loan is, it's basically like a loan where you get it. It's like an instant, if you need money, you go get it. They don't do like a credit check or anything like that, but you end up paying it back at such a high interest rate, because they're leveraging the fact that you don't have the money, and then they're basically taking advantage of you basically not being able to afford life, which isn't funny, but it's crazy when you think about it. Let me go to the page that the book specifically talks about that on, though. Once again, we're coming from Better Capitalism by Paul Knowlton and Aaron Hedges, and this is Q takeaway number 2, and page 188. Let me see, what's it say? 182. Okay, so it says that payday loans are high-cost, small-dollar loans offered with no credit check required, and it's an estimated that 12 million Americans take out payday loans every year. Now, I'm just going to read a few facts that the book gives about payday loans that should be kind of alarming. I know they were alarming when I read it, because I was like, wow. I couldn't believe it that they exist, but it's also one of those things with like student loans, private student loans, but we'll get there. So it says that 30 years ago, payday loans was essentially like non-existent. They didn't even it wasn't even a thing for real. But it says, as of this writing, which is 2020, 15 states and the District of Columbia prohibit or tightly restrict the practice of payday loans. And I know that Georgia specifically is one of those states. So it's illegal to basically partake in that type of operation in Georgia. But there are, 35 states that allow payday lending. So even though it's illegal in Georgia, there's still 35 other states that allow this. And it's exploiting It's exploiting people who go to work every day. Essentially, it's a debt trap for working Americans desperately trying to make ends meet. And the book also points out, like I said, payday loans are more frequent in communities of color. So, moving along, the third takeaway is that yes, America has a problem. America has a problem with what's going on in our economy, these corporations, corporate America, etc. But there is a solution. That solution is partnership economics, and that solution. So third takeaway is that solution is practical, and we can implement it like now. So one way that the book suggests that we can implement that solution, partnership economics, is by funding higher education through equity. And I thought that was a very creative way to address the issue of student loans, because student loans is one of the leading causes of debt, along with credit cards and all that. But student loans is up there in terms of like how much debt America as a whole has because of, but so it says that funding higher education through equity is a way to basically put the risk of financial investment into the hands of people, financial institutions who actually understand these risks. And basically it's like having an employer look at a person and say, okay, they're going to go to school. I'm going to actively engage in like funding this. And by taking out a portion of that person's income. It's like the income is guaranteed with this type of funding. The income is guaranteed. They're gonna go to school, they're gonna get paid. But with that income, there's a portion being taken out by the employer because they actively invested in the education of the student. And I thought that was a very interesting way to go about things because let me see specifically. The book says that it transfers the risk from the government, so like from taxpayers, to the equity funders. And also it says that it's in the interest of the funding of the financial institutions. It's in their best interest to help that student make a sound decision as far as like schooling is considered and making a sound economic decision because they're actively investing. And right now what we have is like students who are making these decisions with like little to no information. They're taking out these loans to go to fund higher education, and then they're ending up having to like work full time to compensate, or they can't afford it, or they end up with like so much money in debt. Now, I know people, myself included, that we have like tremendous amounts of student loan debt. And I know very few people who have made it through college without having some type of debt, unless they were like a student athlete or just super duper smart and just had like really good connections and things like that. But most people that I know owe a couple thousand or so on student loans, and so it's a problem. And so that's one way that we can like implement this better partnership economics model. Another way that the book suggests is that, so there's this thing called arbitration, and I'm gonna go to that page really fast. So some employers require employees and or customers to basically submit to arbitration as the one and only means to resolve any dispute. So for people who don't know what arbitration is, it's basically having a representative or an arbitrator that is going to dispute whatever the dispute may be. So like, let's say for example, I am working for Amazon and on the job I got hurt, right? So and I want to dispute, I got hurt and I think that the company should be held liable or something like, maybe that's not a good excuse because workers comp. But basically, like, if you if you have something that occurs on the job, there's some type of dispute, you technically don't have any rights to get a fair to have a fair case because you're under this arbitrary clause with this employer. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, arbitration is not a bad thing, but it's a bad. What makes it bad is when you are on the other end. So it's like you're being bullied, and then when you go tell somebody that you're being bullied, the person that you're telling is on the side of the bully because they're hired by the bully. That's what arbitration, like these clauses, some of these clauses entail when you're when you're working for them. And so essentially you don't really have any rights if it comes to like disputes and things like that. You don't have those rights, and that's a problem. So the book says that we can solve that by going to the National Consumer Law Center website and filling out a simple form that will notify your senators of your desire to end forced arbitration. So that's what it is. It's forced arbitration. Arbitration is not bad, but when it's forced, that's when it becomes bad. And the last thing here, so there's this thing called lobbying, which is, for people who aren't aware, it's like paying senators and like what do you call it, elected officials or representatives. Let me see. I want to get the right word. Elected, basically the people that we elect. It's like paying them to do what you want them to do, essentially. And when I say that, I mean like pass laws and bills that are in your favor. So if I'm a business and I don't want to be taxed for pollution, I'm gonna lobby. I'm gonna pay money to support or to support the campaign of somebody who I know can pass a law that where I won't be taxed on certain things like pollution. And that's what's happening. So the book gives like really astonishing figures on how much lobbying is going on right now with corporate America. And it says that 173. It says that in 2016 alone, get the specifics. In 2015 through 2016, a total of $4.81 billion was spent by candidates and their parties to get elected. You had there was a bigger number that I saw here. $10.44 billion of outside influence compared to $4.81 billion of direct campaign and political party influence. So basically, these people are paying these officials to basically support their cause, support whatever it is that their business is trying to carry out. And we live in America. We live in a democratic republic. So when we elect officials, the elected officials are to be influenced and accessible to the electorate, meaning the people who got them in the position to begin with. If I elected you, you have a duty to carry out what's best for me, right? Because I elected you. But we have this thing called special interest groups. So special interests, they come, they spend the money that they want. They spend all these dollars to influence these elected officials and try to sway them and persuade them in ways that benefit the company, but also harm your everyday person, your everyday stakeholders like myself or anybody else that doesn't necessarily have a share in a company, which is corruption. Which is essentially corruption. It's if a public servant is to be more than a euphemism that those elected by the public must serve the public. Influence over and access to that is considered by a special group is considered corruption. And of course, like it's allowed. Lobbying is legal, and it happens. So it's not like we can't it's not like we can escape it, but the book says that what we can do is we can imply a tax on it. So like we know it happens, but why not tax the companies for doing that? And then in turn, like the public is benefiting because now we have extra taxpayer dollars to spend on public interest as opposed to special private interest, which I thought was a good way of kind of evening out the playing field. There's some like pros and cons to that as well, because of course, like a company is not going to be like willingly trying to get taxed. Like they're going to probably try as hard as possible not to get taxed. And so it's kind of like getting a turkey to sign up for Thanksgiving. It's like the turkey's going to die. Why would a turkey willingly sign up for Thanksgiving? So, in closing, the book also touches on a couple different things that I thought was like pretty interesting, such as like, the price of partnership economics, because there is a price that you pay when you decide to consider other people. It's a noble price, I think, in my opinion, and a worthy price to pay, but some people, it might not be the same for them. Also, there's like pension shortcomings. So for people who are like teachers and your teachers and your firefighters and your police officers who are actively benefiting from pensions, there's pension shortcomings that they should be aware of. So the book talks about that, and then it talks about the consequences of excessive greed. So I definitely recommend it. And in closing, just ask any questions, like as far as like what do you guys think about partnership economics? How do you feel about it? Like is this the first time you've heard it? Do you think that there's a possibility for us to create a more sustainable economy? I know for me, with like music and hip hop, I think the biggest takeaway for me with reading this book is that no matter what interaction you are engaging in, you have to present value. You have to present some type of value, whether it be monetary, whether it be mental, physical. Like there has to be some type of value that you present to somebody when you're trying to partner with them. And because otherwise, if there's not an exchange of value, then that's when the relationship or the partnership becomes parasitism, parasitic. It's not mutually beneficial. And I say that's like my biggest takeaway, because like as an artist, a lot of times artists are looking for people to do things for them. So like it's like what can you do for me? Can you give me a beat? Can you mix this song for me? Can you master this song for me? And it's like, okay, but what is the artist doing in exchange for that? Like, are you paying for it? A lot of these artists are just out here and they just want people to just give them things, and it's like that's not how the world works. And so that was the biggest thing for me, is just like understanding that with every encounter, with every exchange, there's some type of exchange that has to take place. There's some type of exchange of value that has to take place. Otherwise, it's not going to be something that we can maintain or sustain over time, because somebody's going to tap out. Somebody's going to be like, all right, I've given enough. I'm not giving anymore. So with that being said, I thank you guys for tuning in. This is a really good book for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, got something from it. Once again, it's called Better Capitalism by Paul Knowlton and Aaron Hedges. And if you didn't catch the full recap, I'm going to post this on my IG and on YouTube, so you can always go back and rewatch it. And please share it, like it, comment, and catch me back next Sunday, because we're going to be diving into a whole nother book. So you guys have a great Sunday. I'll see you later. Bye.